I have a question that is at the center of every single human psyche. It shapes our lives. It is so powerful. And whether you've ever taken the time to really consider this question, I promise you have undoubtedly answered it, whether you realize it or not. So here's the question: do you trust God? Okay, now, maybe you don't. And me asking that question is like, oh, I want nothing to do with this, because I know I used to be that person, wanted nothing to do with religion. Anything that had to do with religion, Jesus Christ, any of it, any religion, put up major walls for me and like, I'm out. Do not want anything to do with this conversation or this topic. But even though I felt that way, I didn't understand that I had already answered the question of whether I trusted God. And my answer was no. And that affected my entire world and how I interacted with everything. Now, maybe when I asked that question, you had an elated feeling to where you're like, yes, I totally trust God, and I, completely trust God. I'm excited to see God. And that is my experience now. But it took me a long time to get there. And then I went through all kinds of shades in between. But the answer to the question isn't necessarily the point. The point is, regardless of what your answer is, regardless of whether you're yes, no, or somewhere in between, this question shapes how you see the world. It shapes how you see reality. And that's why this question is so important. And regardless of your answer, this is why you should really take time to ponder and consider this question. Do you trust God? Why do you or don't you trust God? And which God do you trust? There have been countless gods throughout history. To name a few, there's the Egyptian gods, the Roman and Greek gods, the many different Hindu gods, Buddhist gods, the God of Islam, satanic gods, the God of the Jews, and Jesus Christ. There are so many gods. People who've worshipped different gods for the ages. But of all the gods, there is only one that chose this crown. The Bible declares Jesus Christ as the creator of all things. John chapter 1 verse 3 says, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Paul reemphasizes this in Colossians chapter 1 verses 16 and 17, where he states, for by him were all things created, that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. Through Jesus Christ, the Godhead created all things: time, space, the planets, every galaxy, every star. And Jesus chose this crown. Jesus Christ is unique from every God that has ever been worshipped. He's unique from every human that has ever held power. And he's the only one that shows us why God can be trusted. Because Jesus is a perfect reflection of the Godhead. And in Jesus Christ, we can see how God uses his power. This is why we must study Jesus Christ, because he shows us why God is all powerful. And it's because God is love. And God's love heals us. Jesus shows us that God's love heals all who come to him in faith. Do you trust God? And which God do you trust? If the answer to this question is no, I only have one more question for you. Have you studied Jesus Christ?